Hello, my friends. It is day 103, and we're reading 1 Samuel chapter 18 through 1 Samuel chapter 20, and we're also reading Psalm chapter 11 and Psalm chapter 59. And before we get into today's recap, I want to thank you for taking a moment to check out this video, and hopefully you're enjoying the yearly Bible reading program. If you have not yet accepted the invitation, please check out the description box below, and there you will find a link that will take you directly to the YouVersion Bible app, and you can join a number of readers studying the Bible every single day and leaving feedback on the things they're learning right there on the YouVersion Bible app. So we hope you will take up this opportunity to join this reading community, and I know it will be a blessing to you as you are a blessing to us. So we're continuing our reading in 1 Samuel chapter 18, where we're discovering the impact and the influence of King Saul, the first king of Israel, and how it is shaking up things in a way that Israel probably did not think would possibly happen. Now, to be fair, Samuel the prophet already warned them that this sort of thing would happen, but now they're actually living in it, and they're seeing that Saul is successful as far as it concerns the campaigns that he's leading against their enemies. But what we see is that he's failing with God, and we saw that in the previous day's reading, and today we're seeing how this rage and this tension between him and the future king of Israel is growing, and we are learning how David will maneuver through all of this as the godly young man that he is. I mean, it's pretty incredible to see how he handles this situation. Now, one of the things that is most interesting for me is to watch how David has to submit himself to a king who is anointed by God to serve in the position, but it's no longer being used by God. And it takes some kind of humility and sobriety and patience to be able to submit yourself to a person that not only is being abusive and being contentious, but is also sitting in a seat that God has appointed them in to, but has refused to use them in. And this is a lesson I think everyone will have to learn, and everyone will have to, at one point in their life, live in, because these are the sorts of things that God's people go through. And so we're seeing him do that. All along this line is the marriage between David and Saul's daughter. There was one line in here where it talked about in chapter 18, David continuing to be successful in everything he did, which only infuriated Saul more. And it showed us that Israel and Judah were both loving. They loved David because of the success that he was having as he led in various campaigns. This leads to David wanting to marry Saul's daughter, which I believe is, again, if you take a look at the context, it is a political move. Not to say he didn't really want to marry her or whatever the case was. I think that possibly was the case. But when you think about what's happening, you think about what's going on, you have to remember we're living in a time where military dominance is a high achievement, where military strategy is a high practice by individuals who are reigning and coming into their reign. And you would see these sort of maneuvers and strategic acts done quite frequently. And so we want to make sure we stay focused to that. But when the offer was given to have Saul's daughter, there was a contingency, and it was that 100 Philistine foreskins were gathered and brought to the king. Now, his intention in all of this was that David would be killed, but we see that God preserved him, and not only did he bring 100, but he actually brought 200 Philistines. So God was with David, obviously, and this again only infuriated Saul more and more. The thing that helps David in this circumstance is uh, Jonathan's assistance. The fact that Jonathan is so willing to really give up his rights to the throne in order to help David, because it's obvious that God is with David, and Jonathan has the humility to lend himself to David in a way that offends and insults his father. Now, when you look at chapter 20, it shows us that Saul understood what's happening here, and he said to him, it's such a vulgar, in my opinion, insult. So I won't repeat that part. But he says this in verse 30. He says, "Do you think I don't know what you want to that you want him, that is David, to be king in your place, shaming yourself and your mother?" And so he demands him in verse 31 to go and find David so that he can be killed, because as long as David is alive, Jonathan will never have an opportunity to be king. Now, what is happening here? What's happening here is Saul is trying to undo what God said would happen because of his disobedience. Remember, God told Saul that the kingdom had been taken away from his house, which means his children will never have an opportunity to sit on the throne. But what Saul is trying to do here is kill David, because he figures in his mind that if he kills David, then he'll be able to stop what God has said against him in his house. What he doesn't understand is whenever God says something, you can't stop what God says. You can't intervene with what God is going to do. You can't stop that. God protects David because he has put his word on him, and he makes sure that out of all the things Saul is trying to do to hinder him, he's going to see to it that David is successful. Now, whenever we think about David and his impact to the nation of Israel, a few things come to mind. Yes, he was a great king. Yes, he was a great warrior. Yes, he was a man after God's own heart. But I think it has to be noted that David was probably one of the greatest psalmists that Israel has ever had. And the reason for this is because until David, the worship system was defined by Moses. There were obviously sacrifices and responsibilities in the tabernacle. But once David gets on the scene, it seems as though he takes this idea of liturgical worship, or ritual worship, should I say, ritual worship that is regulated to the temple, and he embodies this new idea of worship that involves singing, poetry, and all sorts of lament, which is another form of worship. I believe whenever we mourn before God, we are submitting our desires to him and our burdens to him, and I believe God is pleased in that. When you read through the book of the book of Psalms, you find all of that there. And David is the one, even though Moses did write, even though there are songs in the Old Testament before David comes along, he seems to embody this new concept of worship in a way that transforms Israel forever. And one of those examples is in Psalm 11, where oftentimes David is in a situation and he writes a song, or he's in a problem, he writes a hymn, he writes a poem, he writes a lament. He writes his feelings in the moment, and he expresses what he's going through, no matter how good or bad it may be. So we may we may read a psalm and we may say to ourselves, "Man, what in the world is David thinking?" That's absolutely not the right thing to pray in that moment. But what he does is he embodies the situation. He embraces it, should I say? He not embody, but he embraces the situation. He takes all of those concerns to the Lord. He writes it out for everyone to read and feel in their own circumstance and problem. And for some interesting reason, we are able to resonate with. We are able to associate with the things David has written through the inspiration of the Holy Spirit, because we too bear our own burdens, and we also have those feelings that one may experience whenever they're going through a difficult time. And so these Psalms not only were the Psalms of David, but they became the Psalms of Israel, appropriate for various circumstances, both individually and collectively. And so we see here, give you an example. This is a beautiful example of what we're talking about here, where Saul is king. He is in the position of ruling and leading, should I say, leading a nation in a way that fulfills righteousness, that exudes justice. And here's a situation where the person who's supposed to be the highest justice keeping and justice granting individual in the kingdom is the one that exploits justice and abandons righteousness in order to harm a person that has been sent to him to help him. What does David do in this situation? Well, he writes a hymn. And look at this line in Psalm 11, verse 3. The foundations of law and order have collapsed. What can the righteous do? You see that? You see how he's taking in this whole experience and he's writing from that perspective. Like, listen, I'm in a situation where the very person who I expected to render justice is not doing it at all. What am I supposed to do? And this is the response he gives in verse 4. But the Lord is in his temple. The Lord still rules from heaven. He watches everyone closely, examining every person on earth. The Lord examines both the righteous and the wicked. He hates those who love violence. Look at that. This is why David refuses to react to Saul's actions. He says he will rain down blazing coals and burning sulfur on the wicked, punishing them with scorching winds. For the righteous Lord, catch this, loves justice. The virtuous will see his face. Notice what he's saying. He's saying, listen, if I can't find justice in the kingdom and through the king, I know the one who is the giver of true justice. His name is Jehovah. It is Jehovah himself who will give us the justice that we cannot find, even when the righteous foundations are collapsing right before us. It's a beautiful, beautiful psalm. I mean, it's an amazing way to capture what's happening. Same thing happens in Psalm 59, where it talks about, and this is specifically noted to be a psalm that David wrote whenever Saul sent soldiers to watch David's house in an attempt to kill him. And he writes in this psalm a bit of a plea. If you read through it, he's asking the Lord to rescue him and to help him and save him. It speaks to the circumstances he's enduring. And again, every person who would read it after the life of David would be able to associate with these sort of things, because we all have our enemies, if you will, and those who try to come against us. So we're stepping into a new territory here, and we're exposing ourselves, or being exposed, should I say, to the Psalms. And it is very good, brothers and sisters, to pray the Psalms, read on them and meditate on them, and apply them to your life in those tough moments. And then even in the celebratory moments, use a psalm to thank God and to pray your thanksgiving to Him as you reflect on His goodness. This is what the Psalms are all about. And this is what we're going to be studying for a great deal of time, especially as we're reading through the life of David. So we're going to keep reading. We're going to keep studying. We're going to keep gathering our thoughts. And I would love to hear what you have to say about what you're discovering and what you're learning. Leave it in the comment box below, or place them in the YouVersion Bible app so they may encourage everyone who's reading across the world. But until next time, thank you for watching. Take care. God bless. And remember, live by the word.